Welcome to the 2022 NEA Global Nuclear Science and Engineering Commencement. Due to the limited time today, we will not be able to take questions from the audience. This event is being recorded and will be made available in the near future. Now we welcome our Director General, William D. Magwood IV, and Richard K. Lester, Chair of the Global Forum for Nuclear Education, Science, Technology, and Policy. Director General, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and welcome to all of you around the world. It's a great pleasure to open the third Global Nuclear Science and Engineering Commencement. My name is Bill Magwood. I'm Director General of the OECD Nuclear Energy Agency, and let me begin by congratulating all of you across the world who are graduating in the nuclear science and technology area. We're going to have a very interesting program today. But I'd like to start by welcoming Professor Richard Lester, who is a well-known nuclear educator, currently serving as Japan Steel Industry Professor and Associate Provost in Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he oversees the international engagements of MIT and chairs our Global Council of Advisors for the Global Forum on Nuclear Education. Professor Lester, welcome.
Thanks very much, and hello everyone. My name is Richard Lester, and I've been serving as chair of the Global Forum on Nuclear Education since it was established 2 years ago. And the forum has two goals. First of all, we're working towards strengthening the nuclear discipline and advancing it in countries around the world. And the second goal is to build bridges between the worldwide nuclear academic community, the students and the professors in your universities, and nuclear policymakers in all of the countries that you come from. And as such, we're very excited to be able to host the world-spanning event that we have for you today. And thank you all for being part of it. And of course, congratulations on your graduation. Bill?
Now, when this global commencement was first formed 3 years ago now, it was during the pandemic, and many commencements around the world had been canceled because it was impossible to bring large numbers of people together. Now, of course, commencements happily are returning. Students are getting the recognition they deserve from their institutions. But we decided that it was worthwhile to continue doing this because nuclear discipline is becoming increasingly, over the course of time, a global community. We work with each other, we talk with each other, we collaborate with each other across borders. And therefore, we thought it was important to continue the tradition of recognizing the graduates in these areas on a global basis. So we will continue to do this. This is an opportunity to not only recognize the graduates, but also to highlight the important role that nuclear technologists play in society. And that is the theme of our commencement today. So with that, Richard, we've talked a lot about what nuclear graduates bring to society. Perhaps you have some, as a nuclear educator, perhaps you have some thoughts about what these nuclear degrees do bring.
Yeah, well, they certainly open up many career opportunities. They equip people, professionals, with the skills that are essential for addressing many of the biggest challenges that our society faces today. Food security, space exploration, medical innovation. Nuclear technology serves society in so many different ways. And of course, not to mention the biggest challenges we're facing today, energy security and climate security. So whether you go on to pursue a career in industry or in a regulatory body or in a research organization or even stay in academia, you're going to become the leaders of future innovations and future technologies. And you're going to be involved in finding new ways for the nuclear field, our field, to contribute to the well-being and the development of society?
As I mentioned, we're part of a global community, and nuclear professionals really are a community. Those of you who are now coming into the profession, you will find that you will interact with people throughout your careers who you may only see once in a great while, but they're still there working in the same areas. And because we're such a small community, we know each other pretty well. Experts and leaders interact quite regularly, and we do have a lot of common values and a common sense about our place in society. From my perspective, I find that people in this sector are incredibly optimistic people who look into the future. And a lot of what we do is about making the world and society better as we go forward by bringing the expertise of the nuclear sector to solve the world's problems, many of which that Professor Lesser just mentioned. So that is a community that those of you who are recent graduates will be joining, and it's a very exciting community. And maybe Professor Lesser, you could talk about it. What, from your experience over your many years, what areas have you found where the nuclear technology community really has helped to progress society?
Well, there are many areas, but I think the one that I would highlight is the role that nuclear has played in providing reliable supplies of firm, low carbon electric power in many countries of the world. I mean, it is an enormous contribution, and of course, the expectation is that it will grow. But I should ask you, Bill, what innovations in nuclear do you see might have the potential to contribute future breakthroughs to society?
Well, it's interesting when you go back and you read the early history of the atomic age back in the 50s and early 60s. You had this cadre of scientists that were really creating new disciplines, creating new ways of doing many things, and trying to find a way of harnessing the atom, which was a phrase was very common back in those days, harnessing the atom to benefit society. And they had great vision in those days, and they really did believe that they were going to create the energy of the future. But also, they were very much leading and using these technologies and materials to cure and treat serious illnesses. To this day, some of the most advanced research that takes place in treating cancers involves the use of radiation sciences of one type or another. Many of the diagnostic tools that people don't even think about today, who aren't sick, they go to the hospital to get treated or to get diagnosed, and they discover that radiation science, nuclear science, is playing a big role in their healthcare. And as you mentioned, and one that I used to be involved in one of my former jobs, is space exploration. Whenever I see children with wide eyes looking at these amazing pictures of Jupiter and Saturn and the outer planets, they have no idea that these images were made possible because of nuclear technology. And so when you ask the question, what are the innovations that nuclear can bring to the future? I think it's limited only by our own imagination and our own creativity. And so I'm a big optimistic that we are going to see changes in all these areas. I want to see our societies go to the outer planets. I want to go to Mars. I want to cure cancer. And I want to provide an energy platform that enables us to have economic and social expansion around the world without harming the environment. So those are objectives that I certainly have for not just our community as nuclear technologists, but really our society overall.
Yes, and I think one other thing that we should keep in mind is the role of the nuclear field in creating jobs. nuclear is a global enterprise and it brings all of us together today, but we also should remember that it is sometimes its biggest effects are at the local level, and the jobs and the economic activity that nuclear provides to local communities is often the thing that people most value about it. So global and local, this is really the combination that we all need to keep in mind. I think we can't predict the long-term future for nuclear, of course, but what we do know for sure is that it's people like all of you on this call, this year's graduates, whose energy and creativity and ambition will help the world to find new ways to link nuclear innovations of the type that DG Magwood just described to serve society. So I would just say, dream big, but also be patient. The hard things, the ones that are really worth doing, will take time to do. So dream big, be patient. And with that, let me hand the floor back to you, DG Magwood.
Thank you very much, Professor Lester, and appreciate your comments and agree with you entirely. I think the admonition that the graduates should dream big. There's no limit to where we can go, but we have to have the vision. So please bring that vision with you from your universities around the world and solve the world's problems. Make the world a better place. You're not alone in this. You're going to hear today from some leaders, established leaders who are leading the charge to bring nuclear technology to improve society. And you're going to hear from them today. I'm going to hand the floor to my friend, Chris Levesque, who is the CEO of TerraPower. Many of you may have heard of TerraPower in the past. TerraPower is a company that was formed by Bill Gates and his partners to bring advanced nuclear technology to the world, to do so in a highly safe and proliferation-resistant manner. Chris is the CEO of TerraPower, and he is going to introduce Mr. Gates' presentation. Mr. Gates himself, I think, needs very little introduction. He is co-founder of Microsoft and co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as well as founder and chair of TerraPower. As you know, Mr. Gates founded Microsoft with Paul Allen back in 1975 and led the company to become a worldwide leader in business and personal software and services. He has an exceptional legacy as the former chair of Microsoft, and as well as with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And today, and it may very well prove out to be in the future, that his most important contribution might very well be the founding of TerraPower. So with that, I hand the floor to Chris, who will say a few words and hand off to Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Director General Magwood, and welcome to the graduates attending this commencement today. The pursuit of knowledge is an admirable goal, and today you celebrate the completion of at least a portion of your learning journey. I remember when I graduated with degrees in mechanical engineering and ocean engineering from MIT. On that day, several decades ago, Dr. David Ho, an AIDS researcher, was our graduate speaker. Since then, we've made amazing progress in AIDS treatment. I hope that someday you can reflect back on this day and celebrate progress in nuclear energy and in mitigating climate change. I also remember my first job as a nuclear officer in the Navy. There was such purpose in my work, and this sense of mission has continued throughout my career as I see firsthand the many ways that nuclear technology can benefit society. As the CEO of TerraPower, a nuclear innovation company, this call is clearer than ever before. In my role, I get to help create the advanced reactors of tomorrow and provide nuclear medicines to address severe disease. I hope that each of you finds similar fulfillment in your careers. The world needs a new generation of innovation-minded nuclear experts who believe this industry will provide critical solutions to some of our biggest challenges. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce a person who has spent his lifetime seeking innovation excellence. Bill Gates is the founder and chairman of TerraPower, but you may know him better as the co-founder of Microsoft and as the co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I am honored to work with him today, and I know he will encourage you as today's keynote speaker.
Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. And to the graduates around the world who are joining us today, congratulations. You've done something I never did, get a college degree. And you did it during one of the most challenging moments of the past century. You had to keep pursuing your studies in the middle of a pandemic when in-person classes were interrupted and suddenly it wasn't safe to sit right next to your fellow students. Finishing college is hard enough. Finishing it during COVID-19 is especially impressive. You should be proud of what you've accomplished. You're graduating at a promising time in the history of humanity. I know that may sound odd considering the state of the world right now, but I'm optimistic that the future will be better than the past. I'm optimistic because of bright young people like you and because of the scientific breakthroughs that will improve lives around the world, including new tools created by nuclear science. With nuclear science at your disposal, you can develop life-saving advances in nuclear medicine. You can improve agriculture so that farmers in poor countries are able to grow more food in a changing climate. And you can help us understand the origins of our planet. And of course, you can help solve one of the biggest problems facing humanity today: how to avoid the worst scenarios of climate change. I've been learning about and investing in clean energy solutions for decades, and I expect it to be a key focus of my work for the rest of my life. So I want to spend my time with you talking about the challenges we face and the role that you can play in solving them. The data is very sobering. The world currently adds the equivalent of more than 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere each year. To avoid the worst scenarios, that number needs to be net zero by 2050. But at the same time, the world's population will grow to nearly 10 billion, and our demand for energy will go up by over 50%. Getting to zero emissions by mid-century will be the hardest thing humanity has ever achieved. We need revolutions in every part of the physical economy: how we move around, how we make electricity, how we build products, how we grow food, and how we heat and cool our buildings. There's not a single energy source that can solve all of these problems. Solar and wind will be part of the solution. So will large-scale electricity storage, advanced biofuels, hydrogen fuels, and other approaches. But there is one technology that will be the foundation of every practical path to eliminating greenhouse gases, and that is nuclear energy. It's the only carbon-free energy source that can deliver reliably day and night throughout every season, anywhere in the world, and has been proven to work on a large scale. A nuclear power plant produces more energy per acre of land and with fewer construction materials than any other source of clean energy. Nothing else comes close. But today's nuclear energy technology needs to be improved. New plants need to be cheaper to build. They need to be safer, and they need to produce less waste. Unfortunately, instead of solving these problems, the world simply stopped trying to advance the field. Imagine if we had done that with cars, if people had said, wow, automobiles cause accidents, let's stop using them. Of course, that's not what happened. We used a lot of innovation to make cars safer, inventing seat belts, airbags, rear-view cameras, and more. Now the world needs to do the same for nuclear energy. And I hope that many of you will be at the forefront of those efforts. There are many promising ideas for next-generation nuclear power. One I know especially well and feel optimistic about is being pursued by a company called TerraPower, which I helped start 14 years ago. TerraPower's approach is cheaper, safer, and easier to build than today's generation of plants, and it produces very little radioactive waste. Through a partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy, the company's on track to build its first advanced nuclear plant, and it's planning to build many more around the world. But that's just one example. I wish TerraPower had even more competition. The world needs a generation of bright young people working on many ideas to make nuclear power plants safer and more economical. You can be the developers, designers, and lab directors who make the most of nuclear energy's potential. People sometimes ask me what field I would go into if I was starting my career today. Nuclear science is high on that list. It's hard to imagine a field where you could work on more important problems and have a bigger impact for people around the world for generations to come. Each of you has just taken a big step towards a lifetime of work that will be rewarding to you and to the world. I hope you continue down this path. We need you. Congratulations and good luck to all of you.
I will go ahead and present the next speaker, which is the Minister of Energy for Poland, Ms. Anna Moskwa. She has been the Minister of Climate and Environment for Poland since 2021. And preceding this, she has a very wide career in Polish governments and politics. Among her accomplishments and positions, she held the position of Director of the Department of International Cooperation at the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Inland Navigation. And previously, she was President of the Management Board of Baltic Power. So, Minister Moskwa, I hand the floor to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear graduates, it is my pleasure and great honor to speak at the third Global Nuclear Science and Engineering Commencement event. I would like to thank Director General William Magwood for the kind invitation. This is a very important initiative. It underlines a great role and importance of a new generation's engagement in development of a modern, clean and sustainable nuclear power sector. I would like to congratulate the graduates in the fields of nuclear science, technology and engineering for their efforts during the challenging time. Even though there were many obstacles to overcome, you have achieved your goals through perseverance, dedication and determination. I would also like to recognize and congratulate the academic staff for the invaluable hard work in educating their students, sharing their experiences and assisting them during their journey. The studying period is an unrepeatable time in life. I hope that not only did you have the opportunity to learn about your chosen fields, but also created great memories and important friendships. I am sure that all of you will play an important role in building a better future for the entire world. I'm also convinced that all students who have chosen their future career in the nuclear sector will find a place in a dynamic and innovative industry. I believe that nuclear power will going to play a critical role globally. It will be indispensable in addressing the needs of all economies and tackle climate change in a sustainable way. Recently, many reputable organizations, including the International Energy Agency, Nuclear Energy Agency, International Atomic Energy Agency, European Commission's Joint Research Center, have published reports and analyses showing that nuclear energy is crucial to reach climate neutrality goals. It is important to note that more and more nuclear projects will be undertaken every year. Nuclear energy is a stable and efficient source of energy, not only for electricity production, but also contributes to job creation, economic revitalization and decarbonization. We are currently at the brink of the renaissance of nuclear energy based on a modern technology. The young generation is one who can make it happen and be part of this unprecedented transformation of our energy system towards net zero goals. Dear participants, apart from all its technological values, nuclear power will also help to build thriving communities. It creates well-paid jobs across the country and provides many socio-economic benefits throughout the wider economy. These are not only the jobs that are directly created by nuclear power plants during its construction, operation and decommissioning, as well as nuclear waste management phase. But new jobs are also generated in research and science, services and IT sector, and many others. We have seen numerous times how large infrastructure projects led to significant benefits in many countries. It's important to note that jobs in the nuclear sector are typically high quality, long-term, and even more importantly, local. These projects are able to build the supply chain with local companies and communities. Ladies and gentlemen, dear graduates, let me say a few words about Poland and our plans to introduce nuclear power into energy sector. First of all, EU 2050 net zero target is a huge challenge for Poland. My country has a unique energy mix across the European Union. We produce approximately 70% of electricity from coal. Achieving the target requires from us the transformation of entire coal-dependent regions, while taking into account social costs. The transformation will be lengthy and demanding, but we are determined to change our energy mix. Our priority is maintaining the security of energy supply, as well as the competitiveness of the economy. To achieve the 2050 goal, we must deploy all available zero and low emission technologies, including nuclear. Our program plans from 6 to 9 gigawatts nuclear power generation capacity to be put into operation by 2043. We plan to finish the construction of the first unit by 2033. It will be followed by next 5 units, built one every 2 years. In Poland, as in other countries, nuclear power will contribute to the creation of a new and innovative industry branch with a high degree of technological advancement. Polish companies will have a significant share in the project value. It is estimated that by 2040, nuclear power implementation will generate from 25 to 38,000 new jobs. The Polish nuclear power program enables us to prepare human resources supporting domestic industry and to strengthen the nuclear regulatory authority, ensuring a highly educated and well-trained workforce capable of actively contributing to a unique safety culture is one of the most important tasks for all stakeholders. Due to the need to ensure high competence and efficiency of the nuclear power sector workforce, proper planning, training and personnel management is critical. The human resources plan for the Polish nuclear power industry will be adopted next year. It will contain various forms of cooperation with the Polish nuclear program stakeholders, including universities involved into the formation of dedicated specialists courses and postgraduate studies starting from 2024. It will provide adequately educated staff for the future Polish nuclear power plants. From our plans, you can see that Poland will be an excellent and active place for the young generation interested to start the career in nuclear sector. Nuclear students and graduates will find an interesting and dynamic environment in our country, and I'm sure that they will greatly contribute to our energy sector while transforming it into a clean, innovative and sustainable one. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, concluding my remarks, I would like to congratulate again to graduates for their achievements and wish you good luck in your career. I hope that this initiative and the Global Forum's activities will result in the development of many professional talents and career in the nuclear sector in the future. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I really appreciate Minister Moskwa taking the time to provide that commentary to us and giving all of you a snapshot of what's happening in Poland. It's one of the really exciting areas around the world when it comes to deploying new nuclear technologies. Let me invite Professor Lester to take the floor from here and introduce the next discussion.
Great. So I think our next speaker is Edward Obard from the University of New South Wales. Professor Obard is a nuclear materials engineer in the Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering Department at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. And he's worked in nuclear engineering design, construction. But Edward worked previously at ANSTO, the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organization, and he worked on construction and commissioning of a hot cell facility for nuclear materials research and radioactive materials testing. Today, he leads the work of the Global Forum on issues related to nuclear technology and society. And it's really a great pleasure to welcome Edward. Please, I think you're on screen, and we look forward to your remarks.
Thank you, Professor Lester, and thank you everyone who's preceded me. Look, congratulations clearly to the graduates. And also, look, welcome to the people who may have filtered in from outside, because I realize that not everyone here is a nuclear engineering graduate. So it's great if other people have come too. But hey, those who have graduated and those who might graduate soon, look, you are completing degrees in nuclear engineering, and you really are part of a select group of people, because even within your industry, it's actually quite surprising how few people have specifically studied nuclear engineering like you are. So this makes you really rather a highly sought after group of people. And I think we can even tell that from the previous presentations. So to such a group of highly developed people like yourselves, I think it's barely my role to try and give you advice, right? Because in fact, some of the people who I respect most, I think, are the people perhaps who have ignored advice and done their own thing and followed their own path. And I think you should do the same. But seeing as maybe that's what you might do, perhaps I can still make a request of you and talk about the future for a little bit. You see, by being nuclear engineers, you have been taught really technical mastery of a type of technology that can actually change the course of history. And that's pretty exciting, right? And many of the examples given by Professor Lester and the Director General and Bill Gates at the start of the event were all things of a magnitude that constitute this kind of fork in the path of history. So, for example, you've been taught to engineer machines and structures that must endure over hundreds of years, right? And that work perfectly with these atomic phenomena spanning microseconds all the way to millennia in your engineering calculations. And now you know how to build machines that harness this great thermal and physical sort of power of nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. So because of this, particularly, like I would say this to anyone, right? But I think I really have to say it to you, right? Because of your particular training, I think you all need to understand that the future is not fixed. Okay, and I'm slightly disconcerted, as I think many of you may be, by a prevailing sort of narrative in popular, even political culture, that the future seems to be driving down one track to either a kind of climate redemption where we solve everything by 2050, or maybe a catastrophe if we don't. But this very common narrative actually, which look, is only 30 years long, it's not very far to 2050, ignores all the other threats that we haven't thought of and all the other opportunities that we haven't imagined down this path, okay? And for people like you, for these trained risk analysts and assessors of deterministic safety, no less, I think you of all people should know that this view of the future is too limited. And really, the future is much more complicated, okay? It forks continuously into these multiple opportunities that we may be able to create, combined with some events that we cannot control at all, and a hefty dose of pure chance as well, of course. And really, we only know one thing for certain, which is that some kind of future will come, right? We cannot stave off the coming of the future by any kind of engineering or politics or advocacy, really. So obviously, when we're sitting there in 2050, looking back on some kind of tumultuous start to the 21st century that I think many of us are experiencing, we will wonder how we got there, or here, right? Because we'll be in the future. And we'll still be wondering how to solve all the problems that maybe we brought with us, because these are long-term things, almost systemic, right? Like climate change, poverty, productivity, economic growth, food and energy security, combined with some of the wonderful opportunities that people have explained so far in previous presentations. But really, we need to work through this complexity. And ultimately, we have to carry this responsibility with us. And look, this is existentialism, isn't it? And it can be gloomy. But in all this, I think we can maintain a fundamental optimism that we have as engineers, because the real question is really to ask, what are we going to be doing in the future? How do we want to live? What do we want to learn as we move into the future? And bear in mind that this future that we always discuss around about 2050 is when all of you will actually be at the absolute apex kind of high points of your careers. And that's when your societies are going to need you most of all. So really, I think my challenge that I'm kind of throwing out there for everybody here is to understand that the future is inevitable, but the form of that future is not fixed, okay, not at all. And I think if we can embrace this sort of optimistic uncertainty a bit more, maybe we'll feel really confident to make plans that extend way beyond 2050, which is what we should be doing, right? And we can feel confident to describe these possible futures and how we would like them to be, and then maybe we can make them real. So I guess your challenge, to summarize, is to keep on making good futures for your societies, because I guess you've started already, right? Haven't you? Just keep doing it. The kind of futures that you want to live in, and the kind that maybe, given the kind of tools that you have, can change history for the better. And I know that sounds hard, doesn't it? It's a tough call. But as nuclear engineers, I know that you're the right people for the job.
Thank you very much, Edward. It's good to see you, and thank you for the very wise words. So we're going to move on to the panel discussion, which is coming up now. And for that, Professor Lesser, again, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Bill. So the discussion panel is next. Our moderator, Brett Kugelmass, is going to join us shortly, together with 5 excellent nuclear professionals and students who are joining us from around the world. Let me say a few words about Brett Kugelmass. He's the founder and CEO of Last Energy. He's a technology entrepreneur. His work initially was in Silicon Valley with autonomous flight systems. And then a few years ago, he founded the Energy Impact Center, which in turn launched the Titans of Nuclear podcast, which some of you may be familiar with, and which has become a very important resource for nuclear advocacy and communication across the nuclear industry. And even more recently, building on that work, Brett has established a commercial development company, Last Energy, with the goal of revolutionizing the delivery model for small PWRs. And we look forward to Brett's comments. Brett, if you could please join me on screen.
Thank you for the introduction, Professor. It's really great to be here, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Brett Kogelmass, and as introduced, I'm the Managing Director of the Energy Impact Center and the CEO of the US-based nuclear developer, Last Energy. I'm especially excited for today's conversation as we celebrate the ongoing success of incredibly talented nuclear professionals at the forefront of groundbreaking research in the nuclear industry. I'm delighted today to be here with Vitor Fernandez Jameda, a PhD student in nuclear science with a Master's of Science in Chemical Engineering and the winner of the 2019 World Nuclear University Nuclear Olympiad. Congrats on that. I'm also here with Princess Mtombeni, aka Princey, an award-winning communications specialist, founder of Africa for Nuclear, and a lifelong nuclear technology advocate from South Africa. Also joining us today is Jadwiga Naider, the chair of the European Nuclear Society Young Generation Network, and a passionate nuclear advocate, working as a nuclear engineering consultant at Oak Ridge SAS and currently contributing to the design of the Hinkley Point C nuclear power plant. Joining us today is also Jihye Park, an undergraduate student at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, studying nuclear quantum engineering. And last but not least, Carlos Vasquez Rodriguez, aka Charlie, a PhD student studying nuclear safety at Polytechnic University of Madrid, while leading and participating in the Spanish Young Generation Network and the European Nuclear Young Generation Forum. It is great to see you all. Over the past 5 years, I have had the distinct privilege of speaking with thousands of experts from across the nuclear and energy landscape. And every time I come away inspired by the unique set of characteristics that mark people in this space. You are industrious, inquisitive, and fundamentally optimistic about the possibilities that can be unlocked through this remarkable technology. Okay, as we begin our first section of questions, I will tell you nuclear energy faces a number of challenges. As a field, it's highly technical, requiring multidisciplinary studies. Output of the industry has clearly plateaued over the past 4 decades as costs continue to increase, driven by construction and regulatory complexity. Moreover, there's a grand misperception of the risks of nuclear, fueling the public divide on how to measure its value. But despite these challenges, we've all been drawn to nuclear power for our own reasons, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to learn from this remarkable group. So the first question is for Princey and Vitor. Why did you choose to work in the nuclear field? Tell us about your journey, and how did you get to where you are today?
Thank you so much, Brett. First, I'd like to thank the Nuclear Energy Agency for inviting me to be part of this prestigious event. It's an absolute honor. Greetings to all the amazing graduates and young professionals who have joined us today. And to answer your question, Brett, nuclear industry was a calling for me as I never planned it. It just happened that I found myself here. And because I have always believed that in any role that I'm privileged to serve, I should commit fully and do my job very well. So soon after joining the South African Nuclear Energy Corporation, shortly known as NECSA, I decided that I wanted more than just a career in the nuclear industry. So I decided to embark on a journey to educate myself and through my colleagues and who were nuclear scientists and nuclear engineers. So I also joined, I also attended workshops, conferences, as well as trainings internationally. Additionally, I joined different associations who share similar mission or similar vision as myself, which is to address the socio-economic of the African continent by promoting the peaceful uses of nuclear science and technology. And since then, I did not only become a certified nuclear communications specialist, but I also became a nuclear advocate. And I found myself inspired less by compensation and job titles, but more by the opportunity to be part of something that can impact humanity on a grand scale. So I can basically say that I found my purpose through this industry. Thank you, Brett.
I also would like to thank you for the invitation and say that it's a pleasure to be here today. About my journey, I would say that my journey in nuclear science and technology has just begun. In fact, it all literally started before I had decided to pursue a career in nuclear technology. I personally have always been convinced that a high technological society means a better world. I remember when I was in the college, I learned about the Kardashev scale, which is a method of measuring a civilization level technological diversity. And it is based on the amount of energy the society can use. And that's the real reason I was attracted by nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is one of the best energy sources in the world, with its high density, energy density, and its great potential to contribute to greenhouse gas emission reduction. My interest grew exponentially, and now I hold a master's degree in nuclear science and technology, and I'm currently a PhD student in the same field of study. In 2019, I was the winner of the World Nuclear University Nuclear Olympiad that took place in Vienna. I won with a study that of my country's perspective on nuclear energy scenario. Then the project that involved the conclusion of our third nuclear power plant and an evaluation of the acceptance and knowledge of the Brazilian population nuclear science and technology. I went to different media interviews on radio stations and TV shows for propagating the benefits of the use of nuclear energy. This achievement motivated me even more to pursue a career in the nuclear field and leave me my mark on the world. I am aware that the journey is never ending and there is always room for improvement, but I reckon we are on the right track. Thank you.
Man, it was awesome hearing both of that. You know, one of my great pleasures from hosting the Titans of Nuclear podcast is to get to hear people's story. And so that's just, you know, a little snippet of it there. I'm sure there's so much more. And hopefully with both of you, I can explore it further as well. On to question number 2 now. This one is for Jadwiga and Carlos. What sets people apart in the nuclear energy space? How are people working in the nuclear field in different ways?
Yeah, thank you for this question, Brett. Actually, I always say the same as you just mentioned, that the people's stories are really driving me in what I'm doing. And what I had in mind while thinking of the answer to this question was actually very well shown by the previous speakers. I'm thinking that actually the nuclear community is driven by so much more than the salary and, you know, career, simple work benefits. We have a whole new level of reason on why to join and why to stay in this domain. Our work is really based on serving the society and on much wider basis, also supporting the climate mitigation, climate change mitigation and adaptation. And all these uses of nuclear energy that were mentioned before by the distinguished guest that talked before us, like electricity that is low carbon, potentially heat, clean water, treating sick people, and also food production, preserving food. All those uses are just showing this entirely new motivation that makes us choose this work and come to work with passion, because this is so profoundly useful and it's helping our future and the future of our children and their children and so on.
I thought a lot about this question because I can kind of identify a lot of differences in all the people around me in nuclear. As all the panelists already highlighted, it's clear that nuclear is a very multidisciplinary field with a lot of different applications. But for me, maybe the largest source of diversity in nuclear is that it is present in a lot of countries, and each country has its particular needs and peculiarities. Indeed, I think I can share a personal experience. I'm the representative of Jóvenes Nucleares, the Spanish Young Generation Network, at the meetings that we have with our European colleagues 3 times a year. And well, there we used to share our activities, which in our case in Spain are really focused on communication a scientific dissemination, basically to change the public opinion. But that is not the case of all the countries. And in one of these meetings, one of our colleagues presented their work on their country. And, you know, it was awesome work, but there were nothing about communication in the things that they were presented. And I asked him why. And he told me, well, mate, what we need in our country is skilled professionals to operate our reactors and build new ones, because the public is already convinced. And that shocked me. That was a lesson for me, because I realized that it's really important to consider that different necessities provokes different views. And let's call this international diversity helps a lot to open your mind. But for closing the answer, let me highlight the words of my friend Jadwiga, because if there is something representative for nuclear workers, as we saw with my colleagues panelists, at least in my opinion and also in my environment, these are not our differences, but the strong motivation of a lot of people working around you. And it helps a lot to go through the day working with your team.
That's awesome. You know, just listening to all of you and hearing, you know, these themes emerge of just, you know, the greater social good, people's recognition of that, you know, the passion that, you know, drives people to work in this space, you know, just keeps reminding me that there's so much more to nuclear than people think. And now let's move on to section number 2. Nuclear energy brings together a multitude of fields: chemistry, physics, engineering, medicine, economics, management, business, goes on and on. And these unique intersections offer many opportunities for cross-applications and innovation. So Jihei and Victor, what other fields of science and technology do you think someone working in nuclear energy should interact with? Jihei, let's start with you.
Okay. I think there are endless ways to utilize nuclear power. No matter what field it is integrated to, the synergy from the fusing is enormous. Material, chemistry, physics, you name it. So which field should the future interact with more? I think it is computer science. Computer coding technology is developing rapidly day after day. Scholars are also using coding to implement virtual systems that are exactly the same as those are real world, more like twins. This technology is called digital twin. If we apply this technology to the nuclear field, we'll get benefit a lot from it. First, we'll be able to simulate several DVA accident scenarios more easily. And second, we might find loopholes in the MPP system that our exacting simulation could not predict it. Finally, we can experiment various scenarios without restoration, even if it has the probability of the danger in the real world. I believe that this digital twin technology will greatly advance the field of nuclear safety and decommissioning area. And in fact, these technologies are being actively used in the current research. I'm very excited about the greater future this technology will bring. Thank you.
When you think about the nuclear science, the first thing that usually comes to mind is nuclear energy. In fact, the nuclear science is the heart of so many technologies that improve our lives. However, today I would like to highlight another field of nuclear science and technology, which is nuclear medicine. Even though it wasn't the topic of my thesis, during my master's degree, I had a radiobiology class. I remember that I studied nuclear medicine, which is a medical specialty that uses radiative traces called radiopharmaceuticals to assess bodily functions. Radiopharmaceuticals are used either for diagnostic or therapeutic purposes, such as technetium-99, which can be produced in nuclear reactors. Their application has allowed millions of medical procedures to be performed every year all over the world. About 1/3 of all patients admitted to US hospitals are diagnosed and treated using radiation or radioactive materials like radioisotopes for camera imaging and cancer treatments. Please do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying that everyone should specialize in nuclear medicine or radiopharmaceutical production. But when we learn the basis of nuclear medicine, we can realize that nuclear science is not only to improve our lives, but it is also used to save lives. And thus we can understand even more the weight of the use of nuclear energy in our society.
So what we just heard there were actually two different types of way that nuclear intersects with other industries. The first, when we referred to digital twinning, was all about how we can take technological advances in other industries and apply it to nuclear. And the second is how we can take advances in nuclear and apply to other industries. So thanks for both of you for providing that great cross comparison there. Okay, next question. Princey, Edwiga, you're up. What changes have you noticed since you started advocating in the nuclear field? And believe me, over these last couple of years, there have been quite a few changes. So let's start with you, Princey.
Okay, speaking from African perspective, recently there are many African countries who are showing interest and support for nuclear development programs on the continent as part of the strategy to move Africa closer to achieving its vision for the year 2063. According to the recent report, which was released by Nuclear Business Platform, there are already 19 countries, African countries, who are showing notable interest in developing nuclear infrastructure. And they want to use it as a strategy to move Africa, not only to move Africa to its vision, but also as part of the energy mix, because they have realized that in order to solve the energy poverty that persists in the sub-Saharan Africa, they will need to include nuclear as part of their energy mix. So to me, these are drastic changes that we are noticing in Africa. But also, what I'm noticing lately is a well coordination of nuclear advocates all over the world, young, old, male and female, who have come out in the public spaces such as social media to not only defend nuclear energy, but to also advocate for the protection, development, as well as expansion of nuclear programs. And I have to commend these individuals for doing what I call challenging the status quo. And I hope to see more and more people becoming nuclear advocates, especially young people. So yeah, those are changes that I have noticed, Brett.
Yeah, Princey, you've been my lens into an entire continent. It's just incredible how much is going on there, how many countries. Yeah, Rigo, what do you think?
Yeah, so obviously all the nuclear industry is progressing very rapidly right now with all the new technologies and new applications of nuclear coming afloat. But what really strikes me is something a little bit related to what Princey said, is really the attitudes that are changing and the growing understanding of what nuclear energy is and its crucial role in the climate change topics. I visited actually several conferences of parties of the United Nations several years in a row. And so what struck me at the very beginning, I think nuclear topics were at the beginning treated like devil's advocates. And later, recently, actually last year, we were welcomed with much more curiosity than hostility. And so it's very heartwarming, even though in absolute terms, obviously we are still very far from earning the place, having the place that nuclear earns in this environment based on science, but in relative terms, the progress in the attitudes changing is growing faster and faster every year. And I think it's exactly thanks to the thing that Princey mentioned, we actually learn much better and get more active in representing nuclear. We know where to go. We know how to talk to people better and better. This is all thanks to those tireless efforts of people, so that are helping the general public to take their informed decisions
in choosing their opinions, choosing their representatives, and finally choosing the future for themselves that is low carbon.
Yeah, and tireless efforts sure is right. I mean, I've seen, these communities, these grassroots communities spring up and just do amazing things. I've seen you specifically as part of them too. And I've just been so impressed watching all of this grow and flourish. It's really quite amazing. Okay, let's move on to section number 3. I want everyone to imagine a world where nuclear energy is just totally free from restriction, where it's vital to energy transition. This year's student competition represents an opportunity for early career nuclear professionals to think about how they can grow a positive relationship between nuclear and society. For graduates, the future of nuclear power is within your hands. So Carlos and Vitor, what kind of future do you picture in the nuclear sector? What would you like to see happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
This is an awesome question. But I would like to start from the real world, not from this ideal world, because at the end, science is warning us with every report and publication that we will need ambitious worldwide policies to tackle the climate change. And I would like to see our policymakers to also rely on facts to design those policies. So let's say that my ideal world will be one where in the next 5 years, we will see technologically neutral evaluations on the potential role of technologies in the fight against climate change. For example, here in Europe, we have the European Green Deal, and the Joint Research Center was in charge of evaluating if nuclear should be included or not. And at the end, this scientific institution concluded that it should, but the final decision, of course, is on the politicians, and I would like these decisions to be made based on this kind of neutral evaluations, and not by some multilateral agreement based on interest far from the fight against climate change. But of course, again, don't be naive. This is the real world, so it's evident that for a politician to make a decision against the opinion of most of their voters is not easy. And I think that here is where we, the nuclear advocates, can play a fundamental role. Because I feel that the risk perception of nuclear at the society is not fair. And basically, we need to change that. This will be a very long discussion if we speak about the how to change it. But let's say that we need to improve our communication strategies to get a fair and balanced risk perception of nuclear. Because if we get it, more people will support nuclear, more politicians will be convinced by the thoughts of their voters, and it will be much easier to have the technologically neutral policies that we need.
Well, it's a tough question, but if I could design an ideal future day for the nuclear sector, I would begin with the popularization of science across society. Make the scientific community well-known and accessible to all. Without the correct knowledge about the radiation uses, people get vulnerable to information that may only intensify prejudice and disapprove of the teams. Second, I dream about a world in which there is improved nuclear medicine, in which reduced costs and improved healthcare, using more advanced technology for disease diagnosis and treatments. Last but not least, I would like to see an expressive increase in nuclear power in the world. The number of nuclear power plants in operation, and as a result, the climate change mitigation. It might be easy to forget that the common estimate that approximately 1.6 billion people around the world lack access to modern energy service. A better world is the one where the imbalance in energy availability in developed versus developing country is not a matter anymore. Energy production is an issue that affects our world and has the potential to affect it over many generations. Almost all reports on future energy supply from major organizations suggest an expanded role for nuclear power is required to create a sustainable future energy system. It is tough task to design an ideal future, but a world where energy production supports energy demand and technological advances is the one I would like to live in, and is the one that I really believe that we all deserve it.
Great. Okay, as we conclude with our last question, I'd love Jihye and Princey to just answer with your fast bullet point. What's the greater goal that you're working towards?
Thank you, Brett. As my last two fellow panelists have mentioned, effective communication remains an important tool to which we can use to educate and inform our communities. So my job is to do exactly that. When I get up in the morning, I think about ways in which I can enhance my communication initiatives. And I do this mainly to assist the African nations and their respective nuclear organizations to address lack of public awareness by educating people about nuclear science and technology. And also I do it through initiating a multi-stakeholder engagement to develop a community-based adoption strategy for the African community. I always align my messages with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, as well as the African Union Agenda 2063, with a focus on increasing awareness on linkages between climate change and energy security, as well as addressing issues of inequality, unemployment, and poverty through industrialization. Brett, I live in a continent where over 600 million people do not have access to electricity, and over 400 million people do not have access to clean water, and over 900 million people do not have access to clean cooking. So millions of Africans live in extreme poverty. So my job, I strongly believe that if all these nations were to add nuclear as part of their energy mix, they would be able to address many socioeconomic challenges. Therefore, my contribution is building a prosperous Africa by creating more awareness of nuclear energy, with the hope that I will be able to attract more people, especially decision makers, as well as the public at large. Thank you.
Inspiring as always, and thank you just for grounding us like to the real reality of how so many people live. Jihye.
Okay, I try to implement something periodically to make my dreams a reality. One of them is I read up papers on a regular basis so that I can keep up the research trend in the field I'm interested in. Usually on Monday morning, I search some academic keyword that I'm interested in on Google Scholar. For example, word like aerosol decommissioning, such like that. And I read some published paper abstract. Among them, I read the whole papers that I am particularly interested in while summarizing important content or not. If there are some content similar to those of previous paper, I sometimes link them using some application on the tablet. I can't understand them all because I'm still in undergraduate. However, I try to learn the trend in the field of my interest through the reading and want to become a skilled researcher in the future. I hope that my behavior can become constructive tool for the future of nuclear energy. Thank you.
You may just be an undergrad, but you've already impressed us tremendously. So why don't I take this moment now to offer some concluding remarks and we'll wrap up. All right, everybody. I want to challenge this group and the broader audience. First, be bold in your ideas and your execution around what's possible. Remember that nuclear energy stands alone in its potential to address the key issues underlying energy today: energy abundance, climate change, and especially relevant in today's world, energy independence. Nuclear can and should take the premier position in the clean energy transition to make energy ever more abundant for everyone. When I first founded Last Energy, I set out on a mission to reconceptualize the future of energy on this planet. If we want to generate the energy necessary to power all economies, transform industries ranging from computing to transportation, remove carbon from the atmosphere, and bring clean water to everyone, everywhere, we need to scale nuclear power 100-fold and at 10 times the speed. So as someone who cut his teeth in Silicon Valley, I will respectfully stand in direct contrast to the professor and implore you, don't be patient. Which brings us to the second challenge I'll pose to you. We need to look squarely at the issue of what has held nuclear back and focus our resources at addressing these constraints. The reason that nuclear energy has stagnated globally isn't because of any inherent safety or design challenges. It's because nuclear energy was largely abandoned by so many, not just by those outside of the industry, but our own insiders too. Our own industry is myopically obsessed over the theater of radiation protection rather than real performance improvements of building quickly and affordably. When the world stopped investing in nuclear, it fundamentally halted progress for an incredibly promising technology. We've lost valuable time in making the industry better, the world better, but it's not too late. I sympathize with Mr. Gates's plea for more scientific breakthroughs. And as we've seen today, there's great work happening in this direction. But big R&D breakthroughs alone cannot deliver the solution we need in the time that we need it. For nuclear technology to realize its full potential to fight climate change, it won't come down to some new reactor design that's 10 years out. If we truly desire progress, we must innovate on the delivery model to rapidly deploy at the global scale. The core technology should be an afterthought. The onus is on this generation to work through the immediate challenges of development with the explicit goal of enhancing human flourishing. We are seeing a resurgence of nuclear energy, and it is you who can play the role in delivering a more prosperous future for everyone. Thank you all for having me, and please join me and the panelists in congratulating the 2022 graduating class of nuclear scientists and engineers with us today. We will now move on to the new feature of this year's commencement, the student competition. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Brett. That was an awesome panel discussion. Panelists, thank you so much. You were very inspiring. I wish we could spend the next 3 hours talking with you because everything you said made so much sense. But time is short, but thank you so much. It was really an excellent discussion. I believe, Richard, you're going to be presenting the student competition, so please take over.
Yeah, so let me also add my thanks to you, Brett. And we clearly have different views on the value of patience, and that's great. It's important to have a diversity of views. But I do want to thank you and all of the panelists, Princey, Vitor, Jadwiga, Carlos, and Gia, for your advice and more generally for inspiring all of us with your insights and experiences and aspirations. And in addition to all of your other contributions, you're all extraordinarily talented communicators. So thank you again. Now, as Brett says, we're going to move on to the final part of this event. For this year's Global Commencement, the Nuclear Energy Agency launched a student competition to invite the graduating students to participate directly in the event. And the graduates were asked to think about this question that we've been talking about throughout today's event, the relationship between nuclear and society, and what does it mean to each of us? We received 28 submissions from countries all over the world. There were videos and speeches and poems and essays and graphics, and all of them provided food for thought. Before I announce the winner, let me first congratulate 4 entrants who've been chosen to receive honorable mentions. I think we have a slide coming up which will show the honorees, and they are from Korea, Jongbin Kim from Kyunghee University, from the Philippines, Pamela Air Victoria Lira from the University of the Philippines, from the USA, Seun Olomurewa from Texas A&M, and from Spain, Guillem Sanchez from the Polytechnic University of Barcelona. And I want to congratulate all of you for your really outstanding submissions. Thank you. And now I'm really honored and delighted to announce the winner of this competition, who is Noelia Fuentes Solis, a PhD candidate in nuclear materials from KU Leuven in Belgium. Congratulations, Noelia. I hope you're with us, and we now are going to have the benefit of the video of your submission.
Can you imagine what our life would have been like without fire? I bet our ancestors were equally mesmerized as they were afraid. But it allowed us as a species to achieve so many things, from covering our most basic needs then, to aiding us in the most complex challenges today.
Booster ignition and liftoff of Shuttle Endeavour, NASA's final space station crew compartment, to bring the Magwood view to our celestial backyard.
And today, nuclear power helps us address another set of challenges. It is an essential source of electricity and medical radioisotopes. It is the second source of energy that generates no greenhouse gases, and it is the stable and reliable complement that our other renewable sources need. And if we want to satisfy our future energetic needs, improve economic growth and well-being, and stop climate change, we need all the help we can get. We need nuclear power in our energy mix. However, some of us still see it as an untamable beast, a power so dangerous that some have even decided not to ever use it. I think that when we started using nuclear technologies, we couldn't grasp their full potential, or the risks, or the devastating consequences of its misuse. But does our ignorance back then mean that we should stop using it today? Or does it perhaps mean that we should learn all about it, control it, master it? For me, it means precisely that. I believe that as the advanced society that we are today, we can and we are learning from more than half a century of experience in nuclear systems. We are deepening our knowledge of nuclear phenomena, and we are developing the technology to tackle the nuclear challenges that come our way. And that is why I am conducting scientific research that contributes to the development of the next generation of nuclear reactors. Because the more we know and the more we learn, the more we are able to minimize the risks, mitigate the disadvantages, and increase the safety and efficiency of the nuclear technologies that we so desperately need to provide clean energy and improve the life quality for the generations to come, just as our ancestors did when they dared to harness fire. As researcher Malcolm Grimston once put it, the most dangerous nuclear reactor is the one that we don't build.
Congratulations once again to you, Noelia, for really a wonderful video. There's so much wisdom in your words and so much inspiration in the images that you pull together. It's really a pleasure and an honor to award you the winning the prize. One of the recognitions here will be the opportunity to attend the next GIF Industry Forum, as well as the SMR workshop that will be held this October in Toronto, Canada. So congratulations again to you, Noelia. And let me conclude by thanking all of those who submitted entries into this competition. I'm absolutely confident that all of you are going to make significant, meaningful contributions to the nuclear field in the future. So thank you again for participating and contributing in this way. Let me now hand over to Director General Magwood to conclude today's event.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for leading the Global Forum and for co-chairing this special commencement exercise with me. We really enjoyed it and found it very inspiring. Let me just conclude by thanking our speakers, Mr. Gates, whose video we will integrate to the final version of this when it's put online. Chris Levesque, who gave also excellent remarks and who was so instrumental in helping us arrange Mr. Gates' presentation. Minister Moskowa, who is really one of the finest leaders in the energy area that we have, who's really looking very broadly at so many energy options in her country for the future. Edward Orbert, who's one of our Global Forum members and really a bright thinker and very creative thinker. So Edward, again, appreciate your participation. And Brett, what can I say? Brett, you and your panelists were fantastic. I wish we could just do this all over again with you and the panelists and just watch you guys go at it for the next few hours. Really fantastic conversation. My thanks to you, my thanks to them, and my thanks to all the graduates around the world who will see this both live and on video in the future. Thank you for the contributions that you've already made, and congratulations to Noella. And that was a very, very great video. But for those of you who are graduating, going off and starting your careers, again, follow the advice you were given by Richard and by Brett and others. Think big, because the world needs big thinkers these days. And my wishes for you for successful careers, exciting careers, and to be part of an exciting future for the entire world. With that, I will hand it off to our disembodied voice to close us out.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined us today, and thank you very much to all of you who listened in. Today's Global Commencement has been recorded and will be available on the NEA website soon. You can also follow the NEA on Twitter and LinkedIn to receive updates on our programs and events. As a sign of appreciation for your kind participation today, you will receive in your inbox a certificate of attendance from the NEA. Thank you, and goodbye for now.